In the archives of European libraries, preserved beneath glass and silence, medieval maps exist that do not match the world as we know it. These maps were not drawn by fantasists or storytellers. They were created by monks, scholars, royal cartographers, and navigators who believed they were recording reality. Among coastlines we recognize and seas that still exist today, some of these maps show something else. A vast landmass, a continent drawn with confidence, labeled with names, borders, and sometimes cities. A continent that does not exist on any modern map. For centuries, this continent appeared again and again. It was not a single mistake copied once. It evolved, shifted, and persisted across generations of mapmakers. To medieval Europe, this land was real. One of the earliest appearances comes from maps produced between the 7th and 10th centuries, long before global exploration. These maps, known as mappa mundi, were not navigational tools. They were attempts to describe the entire known world as it was understood through scripture, classical texts, and traveler accounts. On several of these maps, beyond the edges of Europe, Africa, and Asia, a massive southern land appears. It is labeled with variations of names: Terra Australis, Terra Incognita, Terra Ultramare, the unknown southern land. The continent is not drawn as a vague shape. It has coastlines, rivers, mountains, sometimes people, sometimes animals. Its scale rivals Europe and Asia combined. Medieval scholars believed this land was necessary for balance. Ancient Greek philosophers, including Aristotle and Ptolemy, argued that the earth must be symmetrical. If land existed in the north, land must exist in the south to counterweight it. This philosophical assumption was treated as geographic fact. By the 12th century, as Islamic scholars preserved and expanded classical knowledge, these ideas re-entered Europe. Map makers copied earlier sources, refined them, and added detail. The unknown continent became more precise with each generation, not because it was discovered, but because belief hardened into certainty. One of the most famous examples is the Hereford Mappa Mundi. Created around 1300, it places Jerusalem at the center of the world, but it also hints at lands beyond known oceans. Later portal charts, used by sailors, became more practical, yet even these included unexplored lands drawn with cautionary notes rather than doubt. By the 15th century, as European exploration accelerated, the mysterious continent grew larger, not smaller. On maps by cartographers like Martin Waldseemüller and Orens Fine, the southern continent dominates entire hemispheres. Fine's 1531 map shows a massive land wrapping around the southern oceans, complete with mountain ranges and rivers. These were not random sketches. These men were among the most respected geographers of their time. The continent persisted because no one had disproved it. Ships had not yet sailed far enough south. Absence of evidence was interpreted as distance, not error. As European explorers reached the Americas, Africa's southern tip, and Asia's coastlines, the maps were updated, yet the unknown continent remained. It shifted southward, retreated from the equator, but never vanished. Each expedition that failed to find it only pushed it further into the blank spaces of the map. Some medieval sources describe the land as fertile and populated. Others warned of extreme heat, monstrous creatures, or impassable seas. These contradictions did not weaken belief, they strengthened it. Mystery was expected. The continent also appeared under different identities. In some texts, it was linked to biblical lands beyond Eden. In others, it was associated with ancient legends of lost civilizations. None of these claims were treated as fantasy. They were scholarly debate. The turning point came slowly. In the 17th and 18th centuries, explorers began crossing southern latitudes repeatedly. Dutch, Spanish, and British ships sailed farther than any before them. They charted coastlines with precision. They filled the blanks. What they found did not match the maps. Australia was discovered, but it was far smaller than Terra Australis. Antarctica existed, but it was frozen, uninhabitable, and nothing like the fertile continent imagined for centuries. The vast southern landmass was reduced, piece by piece, until it no longer fit the original vision. By the late 18th century, cartographers quietly removed the continent from their maps. There was no announcement, no apology. The land simply faded away. The medieval continent had not been hidden. It had been imagined through logic, philosophy, and incomplete information. It was a reminder that maps reflect belief as much as reality. Yet questions remain. Why did so many independent mapmakers draw the land with such confidence? Why did details appear consistent across centuries? Were these maps purely theoretical, or were they influenced by lost accounts, misinterpreted sightings, or ancient voyages forgotten by history? Those questions did not disappear with the continent. They wait in the margins. The story of the phantom continent does not end with its removal from maps. Its legacy continues to influence historians, cartographers, and enthusiasts who study the history of exploration. By the 18th century, explorers like James Cook and Abel Tasman provided detailed accounts of the southern oceans. Cook charted New Zealand and the eastern coast of Australia. Tasman mapped Tasmania. These discoveries replaced speculation with observation. Gradually, the great southern land predicted by philosophers and drawn by medieval mapmakers was reduced to the continents we know today: Australia, Antarctica, and scattered islands of the South Pacific. Despite this, medieval depictions of Terra Australis remain fascinating because of their accuracy in unexpected areas. Some coastlines, when compared to modern geography, loosely approximate real landforms. Mountain ranges and rivers often correspond to actual topographical features. Scholars suggest that these details may derive from ancient travel accounts, perhaps from Polynesian voyages or lost European expeditions that reached distant southern shores. While speculative, these traces suggest that medieval cartographers attempted to incorporate any available information, blending knowledge and imagination. Another reason for the continent's persistence was the authority of classical sources. Ptolemy's Geographia described the known world in terms of coordinates and relative positions. Medieval scholars revere Ptolemy and trusted his principles. Maps based on his work naturally incorporated ideas like a counterbalancing southern land. As new explorers confirmed portions of the world, the tradition of including the continent persisted because of respect for ancient authority. The idea also held symbolic and political significance. In some maps, the continent represented the unknown and the unconquered. It was a space for imagination and potential discovery. Monarchs and navigators used these maps to promote expeditions, claiming that riches and territories awaited beyond known lands. In this sense, the maps were as much propaganda as they were geographic tools. Cultural factors reinforced belief. Legends of lost civilizations, monstrous creatures, and distant lands filled gaps in knowledge. Travelers' tales from Africa, Asia, and the Pacific reached Europe in fragmentary forms. The stories were sometimes exaggerated or misunderstood, yet they contributed to the mental image of Terra Australis. By blending observation with narrative, medieval maps became a hybrid of geography and storytelling. The disappearance of the continent from maps occurred gradually. As surveying techniques improved and global exploration continued, the need for speculative land diminished. By the 19th century, most maps reflected empirically confirmed geography. Cartographers replaced unknown spaces with measured coastlines and accurate latitude and longitude. Yet, the maps left a lasting imprint on culture and thought. The idea of a lost southern continent inspired explorers, writers, and scientists. It appeared in literature, philosophical discussions, and early science fiction. The maps influenced the imagination of generations who wondered what lay beyond the edge of the known world. Modern analysis of these medieval maps reveals the sophistication of the cartographers. They synthesize classical knowledge, travel reports, philosophical assumptions, and empirical observations into coherent representations. Errors existed, but they were grounded in reason, not random fantasy. The so-called continent we never found is a testament to human curiosity and the evolution of scientific understanding. Today, historians use these maps to trace the development of geographic knowledge. Scholars compare multiple editions, noting changes in size, shape, and labeling. By studying these variations, researchers reconstruct the flow of information, the transmission of ideas, and the interplay between knowledge and imagination. The medieval continent served as a cautionary tale. It reminds us that maps are not neutral. They reflect assumptions, biases, and limitations of knowledge. What seems real on paper may be provisional, awaiting confirmation or correction. In conclusion, the continent depicted on medieval maps was never lost, hidden, or erased. It existed as an idea, a hypothesis, a philosophical necessity, and a product of human imagination striving to comprehend a vast and unexplored world. Its presence on maps across centuries demonstrates the interplay between knowledge and speculation, and how humans use visualization to understand the unknown. The land may not exist on Earth, but it exists in history. It exists in the minds of those who sought to chart the uncharted, and it continues to intrigue anyone who studies the evolution of human understanding, reminding us that the search for knowledge often begins with a question, not an answer.